Okay, so this is a video to use the probe setting tool with the Expo process analytics devices. For any devices supplied from 2025 onwards, they will be supplied with the new compression fitting. For any legacy devices prior to that, they will have this old fitting. All you need to do is unscrew the retaining nut, pull out that compression sleeve, and then we can install the new one. Okay, so you're going to start by fitting the locking nut over the compression sleeve. The bore looks circular, but it's actually keyed. So in a particular orientation, if you rotate this, you'll find that the clamp actually fits over the sleeve. And once it's on, then you actually feed the sleeve into the bore and tighten on the thread. Okay, so feeding the dummy probe through from the back of the device through the compression fitting that we installed. You want to push it all the way through until it's just shy of the front of the device. At which point you're going to use a stopper at the front of it with a screw that's provided, and put the completely flat edge against the front of the device and thread the screw into the end of the dummy probe, which will pull the dummy probe forward until it's flush with the stopper, and by extension flush with the front face of the device, like so. So once the stopper has been applied to the front of the device, you know the length that the probe needs to be set to, at which point you'll use the two split clamps. So these get positioned over the back of the compression fitting. You'll see that there's a notch in these clamps that aligns with the shoulder on the compression sleeve, and there's one of these top and bottom. So what you'll do is you'll position them over that slot, at which point then you'll fasten your screw in at the top. And on the second one. And what you want to do is tighten these incrementally. So tighten one a little bit, then tighten up the second one, and then go back and forth until it's tightened to the intended torque. Okay, so once the probe is now been clamped at the correct length, you can just undo the compression fitting. Excuse me, undo the retaining nut. And then you can pull this all out like that and transfer it across to the setting tool. Okay, so once you have the depth set on your dummy probe, you can move across to your setting tool components. So what you're going to have is your base and your slider component, which goes over it. So initially, what you can do is feed the dummy probe through the sliding component and thread it on. So you'll thread it on all the way, and you just have to make sure that when you're tightening it, you torque it to the same value that it was torqued to on the back of the device. So I'm just going to hand tighten it here, but this would need to be torqued to the same value. At which point you're going to slide this down over the fixed component until the dummy probe bottoms out on the polymer base. At which point you then want to lock your setting tool in place with the two fixing points, two clamped screws, one there and one there, and same thing as before. What you want to do is tighten these evenly and incrementally, so in sort of 0.2 or maybe 0.3 Newton increments back and forth, so that it's clamped evenly. Okay, so shorten that there, but that is then the setting tool height set. Okay, so once you have the probe height set, then you just remove the dummy probe. So again, this would normally have to be a tooled operation, but I'm just doing it by hand here. you'd undo the thread. You'd remove the dummy probe from the unit, and then you've got your probe height set for any probe that you want to use with that device. Okay, so at this point what you want to do is take the compression fitting and clamps off the dummy probe and put them onto the actual probe. So all you need to do is loosen, not remove, the two fasteners on the back of the clamp. Again, this would normally be torqued to a predefined value. I'm just torquing them loosely for demonstration purposes. But you just have to loosen them a little so that it can slide off, and actually that can then become sort of one sub-assembly that you can move to the actual probe in its entirety. Okay, so at this point, again, you have your compression fitting and your collar and your sleeve. So then you'll thread this back onto the device, or back onto the setting tool, excuse me. Again, we'll torque it up to the intended value, the final value. But I'm just going to tighten it loosely for now. And then you'll feed whatever probe you intend to use into this compression sleeve, into the setting tool, being gentle with it, but let it fall down and bottom out on the polymer base, because that is now mimicking the distance to the front of our device. At which point you will then tighten back up the clamp components on both sides evenly into predefined values, but I'm just tightening them loosely just for demonstration purposes. And at that stage, you can then again undo this fitting, or excuse me, undo the retaining nut. Remove the actual probe from the setting tool with sub-assembly in tow, and now you have the exact insertion depth that this device can be installed into the back of our device.